Hey everybody, this is Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. I got a special vlog today talking about Tropical Storm Ida and the potential impact on the Gulf Coast. Now, we've got a lot of viewers I know and followers of mine in the Carolinas. Eventually, we might see some rain from it, but it's not going to be anything like Fred or anything remotely close to the impacts to our south and west. So I will eventually talk about those impacts down the road for the Carolinas, but I really want to focus on the people that are following or watching from the Gulf Coast because this has all the makings of a destructive hurricane because of the location it's hitting, southeast Louisiana, the central Gulf Coast, very susceptible to storm surge, but also the environmental conditions that are in place for this to become a major hurricane, if not even stronger. You can see how the storm is absolutely exploding this morning. Still a tropical storm, but it does have the potential to become even more potent over time. I'm gonna switch to a couple different products here just to kind of show you the different parameters going on. So the thunderstorms, or the convection we call it, is right here. That's the center. It's really beginning to develop here across areas of southern Cuba, the Isle of Love, the Cayman Islands. This is not a very mountainous area of Cuba, so the landmass won't have as big an impact as you normally would see with this system. Now, I'm going to show you the forecast cone because it's basically right at the Gulf Coast. And again, I would caution you to focus on the cone is where the center could be. The center could be here with the average somewhere in the middle. But remember, sometimes the impacts go way outside the cone because the cone is only tracking the center of the storm, not the impacts of the storm. Now, the time frame for all this, let me quickly show you the time frame of this. This is what I just tweeted out shortly a while ago here. You see the timeline. So basically late Sunday into early Monday, the worst of this storm is going to impact the Gulf Coast. Now, you see a Cat 3 or major hurricane, 120-mile-an-hour winds. There's potential this could be even stronger than that as it approaches the Gulf Coast. Why do we think that? Well, the track of this storm is basically going to move over some of the warmest waters in the entire Gulf of Mexico. So not only the warmest waters, but very deep warm water. That's what we call the loop eddy. So it's not just a shallow layer of warm water. This goes down, maybe 60, 70, 80, 100 feet deep. So as the storm moves over, you don't get a lot of immediate upwelling of cooler water from underneath. Now, warm water is the fuel, but you also need very good environmental conditions. At the same time, over the Gulf of Mexico, we anticipate light wind shear, so nothing to tear the storm apart. So it's kind of the bad combo of high octane fuel and a perfect road for the vehicle to travel on. So it's going to get maximum speed. So potentially this could be a Cat 3, could be a Cat 4, could be higher. Let me show you some of the intensity forecast this morning. So real quickly, here's the intensity forecast, and you can see a pretty tight clustering up in the Cat 3 range. But we're starting to see some in the upper Cat 3, Cat 4 range. This storm is going to go through rapid intensification at some point. You can see basically from sometime tomorrow, once it gets over the Gulf, to about Sunday morning, there's about a 24-hour window there where it could go from 75-mile-an-hour winds to 120, 130-mile-an-hour winds in very short order. So the potential for significant intensification of this storm is possible. Now, there's really high confidence in the track. We normally don't have confidence like this with the system, but it's pretty amazing to see all of the guidance. I mean, that's really tight clustering. So while there is still some wiggle room, there's actually less uncertainty than we normally have with the system because the steering currents are straightforward. So Louisiana Gulf Coast, give or take about 100 miles somewhere on the Gulf Coast of Louisiana is kind of where we are. And the reason we're fairly confident is we've got high pressure over the Carolinas, which is going to keep us hot and dry. This thing is backing towards the southwest. So this thing is going to move right around that area of high pressure. Now, eventually, we could see some moisture in the Carolinas, but remember, it's going to be over land for quite some time. So the wind's probably not a big issue. Tornado is probably an issue, but maybe some heavy rain. But I will tell you, the other concern for Louisiana is not only the power of this storm, but it could slow down. So the combination of heavy rain and storm surge could be just a mess here. And we're going to look at some of the water inundation or max water heights right here, because this is the track from this morning. I'm waiting for the new track to come in. It has not come in yet. But just to give you an idea, when this storm approaches the Louisiana Gulf Coast, you're pushing somewhere on the order of 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. Heavy rain is going to be falling inland, trying to flow back out these rivers, bayous, and canals. But water's coming in from the southeast. So that water has nowhere to go but over the land, which is barely above sea level. Southeast Louisiana, if you live there, you know you're very familiar with this, but you see some of these high water levels. Now, you notice New Orleans, protected by levees, as long as they stay intact, you should see dry conditions. But this is always going to put a big burden on the levee system, especially the hurricane protection levee, as well as even the river levees along the Mississippi, which are much higher and actually do a much pretty good job because they were built for the flood of 27. So you tend to see those kind of sustain themselves. But that's some really high water coming into southeast Louisiana, which is typically very susceptible to storm surge. Here's a look at the water heights. And again, you throw some waves on top of this. This is a bad combo for southeast Louisiana. So again, potential for significant flooding and damage to southeast Louisiana. It is time to evacuate. It takes about 3 days for some of these low-lying areas to get far enough inland. So it's time to evacuate in southeast Louisiana just because of the duration and the intensity and possible time it takes for those areas to evacuate. Now, the steering currents, let's briefly talk about that because long term, where do we think this thing is going? We know this high is definitely going to steer it around, but it looks like this thing could meander across the southeast into the end of next week. So Carolina's long term, we might see some rain from this, but it's a little uncertain now about how much rain and for how long. Certainly something we need to pay attention to. One of the things I've been looking at is the split in the guidance is not very big. Again, this is the ensemble. Look at this. All of them are clustered in the same area. So this is really good, what we call consensus in the guidance. And it's just not the GFS. It's the Euro. It's most of the guidance. So that's why I said there's a pretty high confidence in the outcome here. So let me briefly talk about the rainfall. So just real quickly, the rainfall with this system, because eventually, it's moving, inland, slowing down near landfall. And eventually that moisture moves into areas, possibly the Carolinas next week. We'll go out 7 days into the future. So you can see the track. The heaviest rain, obviously, on the Gulf Coast, but there could be a swath of very heavy rain up into Tennessee. And then in the Carolinas, we'll kind of wait and see. But right now, it does look like there'll be at least enhanced rainfall chances, maybe by the end of next week, probably in that Thursday, maybe late Wednesday, Thursday, Friday time frame. So we've got time to watch that. But our immediate concern right now is for the folks on the Gulf Coast because the potential that this is going to be a significant storm for areas in southeast Louisiana and central Louisiana, Mississippi, and even the Alabama Gulf Coast. Please listen to your local officials. If they tell you to leave, leave. My saying is always, you run from the water, you hide from the wind. Right now, we need a lot of folks to run from this water. Get inland as far as you can. Help your neighbors, your friends out. Hotels are always at a premium. They're expensive. Yeah, you can put somebody up. Please do that. We definitely need this over the next couple of days because this could be a devastating storm for parts of the Gulf Coast that are susceptible to storm surge.